Well, hello and welcome to Analysts Gone Wild. It's Friday, I guess afternoon almost where I'm at, and Robert Kramer with more insights and strategy. I'm joined by a great group of guys here, and I see some of you guys on the road, and some of them we just converge here. But I handle ERP and supply chain management, enterprise data, data protection, and I'm here with some great folks. Why don't we introduce ourselves? John, I just saw you when we were in Atlanta. It's kind of hard to remember what city we were in last. That was we were at an SAP strategic meeting, and I thought it went pretty well, and got to talk to you a little bit about some of your personal stuff and hobbies and just stuff like that. And we talked a little bit about SAP and when we had a chance. So how you doing today?
Doing good, man. I got a kick out of you describing me as soft-spoken backstage. I think we're still in our honeymoon period. Yeah, you haven't seen me blow a gasket yet, which is unfortunately I'm notorious for doing that. So
yeah, don't do that, please.
So no. I'm gonna send you a podcast. I'm gonna send you a podcast of me going off on misconceptions about SaaS versus AI, and you'll see what I mean.
Okay. Yeah, I have heard those ones for sure.
Yeah, Sam knows what I'm talking about. But anyhow, we're in a honeymoon phase. I like that, Robert. That's great.
I thought I was throwing that with my wife, but after the baby came, it came.
That's basically how it goes with me too.
So where are you at today? How was your week at SAP, and what's going on with you in your world?
Well, just real quick on that, I don't want to. I know we have a lot of news stories to digest, but I really value any opportunity to have candid back and forth discussions with executives, and that happens best on the ground and also with customers. Of course, we didn't have that many customers there, that we did have a nice panel and good interaction there. But that back and forth to me is what I live for, and I like to think that most of us do, because that's where we get to real insights and maybe even making change on projects. And I love those discussions, and I feel really privileged when I'm a part of those, and that's what makes it worth getting on planes. When it gets into slide brain dump mode and PowerPoint stuff, then I start to think, well, we could have done this on a webinar. But when you can have that really genuine, authentic communication and just share our problems and what's working and what's not, I mean, I live for that stuff.
Yeah, I mean, the goal is, how do we get the customers healthy, in one way or another. It's all about the customers, because no one can survive without the customers, the monies that are coming from them paying to where we're at today. So I think that's really the goal. So Ken, where you at today? How are you?
Well, hey there, folks. Ken Gonzalez here, lead analyst and advisor at Pretty Simple Group. I'm in Portland, Oregon. It's actually sunny. I am just
wow.
shocked. It's wonderful, and it's warming up a little bit. So I'm just overjoyed. I'm planning on getting my dose of vitamin D as soon as we finish. So I got lots of stuff going on, and we can talk about that. But I'm glad to be here with y'all, because it's always a great time, and lots of good news this week.
Good. And Sam, round it out.
Yeah, and
golf foursome here.
Yeah, and it's sunny here as well in Toronto. And Ken, you should not be complaining. Okay. Here it's supposed to be the winter and -20, but today it's sunny, so it's great. Sam Gupta here, principal at Elevate IQ. Elevate IQ is the independent vendor agnostic technology advisory firm, also host of the WBS Talks. Robert, over to you.
Yeah, so we got some good stories today. I like them, and Salesforce, everybody's been keeping an eye on for a long time, and they've been obviously one of the largest or the largest CRM and enterprise cloud software company there in San Francisco. So they, just from a MuleSoft standpoint, they acquired them about 8 years ago. It's a pretty healthy amount of money for $6.5 billion. So what this is about is they're expanding MuleSoft Agent Fabric. It's a platform that's first unveiled at Dreamforce, I think it was last year. So with the new capabilities, automated agent discovery via the agent scanners. So the scanners are automatically detect, catalog, track AI agents, which this is a big subject. We all talk about these AI agents and where they play a role in our future. But the platform includes Salesforce, their own agent force, and then I guess it's a component also that it goes down to Amazon's Bedrock, Google Cloud, Vertex AI, Microsoft Cloud, Copilot Studio. So this is I think something significant. So this is pretty important. Before I go into all those things, let's everybody else get involved in this. This is $1 billion industry with these agents. And I think it's something that's significant to talk about. And what are the pros, the cons, and what are the challenges, and what's the business impact? So, John, start with you. What do you think of this?
So, just a few things. I think there's three sort of mega things going on here that I think are worth pointing out. One is that while the investor markets freak out one day when Claude, questionably claims that they can reproduce enterprise COBOL code at scale, and IBM stock drops 10% overnight. In the enterprise, I think a lot of customers have moved on to the point where they're starting to think about, as we deploy these agents, how are we going to govern and manage them at scale? Like, that's what customers are thinking about. They're not thinking about how can we rip out our mainframes and play around with Anthropic's code generation tools. They're thinking about how to govern all this stuff. And then the second thing is that some of the sort of AI agent enterprise sweepstakes are still up for grabs, right? Because one thing we don't know is, will someone create a better user experience that allows me to access my agents across multiple software programs? We don't know who will do that yet. But think about OpenAI. One of their biggest strength was creating a better user experience. Now that's under fire a bit now, but the point is, they created a great user experience for people, and that was one of the reasons why they had this big rise. So the UX is really important. But the second thing is, who's going to provide me with a governance view, not only of my vendor's agents, but all the agents in my landscape? And that, I think, is what Salesforce is going after here. And you see in the press release, it talks about giving you ability to automatically detect and catalog agents across Salesforce, Agentforce, Amazon Bedrock, Google's Vertex AI, et cetera. So Salesforce is trying to say, you can not only use this for our grounded, Salesforce stuff, but you can use this to manage your entire agentic landscape. If Salesforce succeeds in that play, obviously you can see what the benefit that might be for them. And my final comment would be, this is one of my favorite press releases I've seen in a while, because it really focuses on educating people as to the problems of things like shadow AI. And I think it provides a lot of information in the press release, which I wish I would see more often instead of just promotional gobbledygook.
Yeah, and I'll get to you in just in a second, Ken, but it solves an urgent problem that you're talking about. So as AI agents multiply, the governance is a big pain point. But I also see these data platforms going to, instead of a platform, it's more of an ecosystem. And so, Ken, let's turn it over to you, get your opinion.
Yeah, so John, I love your comments, and I think that this is indicative of the shift from AI bolt-ons that we've been seeing previously to now wanting to have this be foundational as we start to talk about agentic approaches. And I think that one of the things that's pretty predictable is to see vendors starting to talk about it from a kind of nuts and bolts and plumbing perspective of, okay, how do I start to bring all the components together? But I mean, to John's point, to think about the user experience, to think about governance, to think about how you're actually going to have your employees partner up with your AI agents so that it actually becomes a work team, as opposed to, oh, you got this thing out there potentially going rogue. You don't know what it's doing, how it's doing it. This is part of the things that our customers actually need to be thinking about, so that they're putting in place longer term plans about how to enable AI thoughtfully in their organizations. Because the thoughtful approach to it is not only going to give them a better outcome, it'll also help them manage their costs better and deal with the inevitable set of changes that are going to come along as people start changing their product offers. And, because it's not, oh, I have the LLM, now let's just go. No, it's not quite that simple.
Yeah, but it also, just to piggyback on all of this, I think Salesforce is also repositioning MuleSoft, going from an integration platform to more of an AI operations infrastructure. So they're trying to do something with their original value prop, but connecting some of these chaos that they're seeing in these different apps. But Sam, going more towards the agents instead of APIs. What do you think?
Overall, I guess great comments, and I completely agree with everybody so far. And I'll build on your comment, Robert, related to MuleSoft's positioning, scope, market movement, I guess. So from my perspective, the way I look at this, I used to think, and I still think, I guess, that MuleSoft was more of the iPaaS integration platform. I don't think the scope of that was anything more, and that's probably the reason why they had acquired Informatica, as far as my understanding goes, because the whole data integration layer is a very different problem than app integration. These two are very, 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 different problems to solve. So now, if MuleSoft is auto discovering these agents, what is the scope of MuleSoft? Is that going to be AI plus data plus integration? I'm not sure if there is enough architectural clarity here. Now, the questions are going to be that, are most iPaaS applications are going to do this? Then what happens to data layer? How are those markets or vendors going to evolve given this? Now, when I look at this, overall agents, if I think about them, I see them as more of the newer API, smarter API, intelligent API, however you want to define that. Some people may not appreciate that comment, but that's okay. But when you are utilizing a lot of different agents underneath and you are sort of integrating with them, that's how I see it. So mostly you are going to have these agents integrated and consumed pretty much in every single layer, which is going to be your application integration data layer as well. Because instead of API, you are just going to use agents now. From that perspective, if we are looking at this, then everybody's going to have automated discovery. Is that true? That's going to be a very interesting, if that is the case, because then where is the governance, I guess, to John's comment? We are going to be all over the place. So those would be my comments and questions, I guess.
Well, let's hop on the automated discovery here for a moment, because one of the things historically I've disliked about tools that go do automated discovery, most of the time what you end up pulling in are things that people need to go sort through anyway, because it ends up being a bit of a trash bucket. And you need to go digging for gold in order to figure out, of the things that you can see, should you actually bring into your source of truth. And then there's also what is it that you need that you can't see, that you can't discover by automation? So taking a more thoughtful view of the total, like the enterprise, that's where we need to start to actually see, is the automated discovery going to get you where you need to be?
Yeah, so some interesting comment. We have some comments in the audience as well, and we are getting a lot more comments now. I guess it could be because the time changed, so that's positive. Sounds like time change is working. Just 1 second. I think I need to change the view so that we can see everybody. Okay, thank you so much for joining, Art. We have Leonard as well. Hey, Leonard, and he has a comment. Employees using Salesforce and others need to learn not only AI literacy but data literacy as well to make the most of this. I don't know how Salesforce is going to feel about that comment, I guess. But do you guys have any follow-ups there? Any comments on that comment?
Well, obviously, data is the big component. That's the currency. That's the currency that drives AI. And if it's not, if you don't have your currency in order, it's not going to work as intended.
So I agree strongly with what Leonard is saying here. And one of the big issues to track in this coming year in enterprise software is the gap between where customers are at in their AI adoption, especially when it comes to successful deployments, versus where vendors are at. And I think education and literacy is an important way to start filling that gap. And that has to really come from both sides, from the vendor, but also from the customer. So the customer needs to own their AI strategy. It's too important to offload that onto one single vendor as well. And, honestly, so we interviewed a customer last week. I won't say their name, but they said that their 300 team around AI and stuff are in a pretty good spot in terms of their learning and their understanding of the technology. But they said the rest of their 7,000 employees are basically terrified. And I think that's going to be true in a lot of organizations right now. Look at the news wires. I mean, I spent 2 hours with relatives after the event, talking them through and calming them down about AI. And then I had to wake up to the Anthropic headline around, using AI for autonomous weapons, and then I had to calm myself down. So the point is, there's a lot of scary shit out there right now, and so really understanding what the technology can and can't do, and how it's going to help you do your job better, and where are you threatened, and where do you need to change, and all of that is huge. And as Leonard points out, so much of this right now goes down to data, and that a big part of what we call intelligence in AI, or better, I would argue better, just call it results, comes down to data. That's not everything. Sometimes AI systems don't act appropriately on their data, and that's a really, really important point that people need to keep in mind. But data is huge, and so I agree. And all of this is an organizational culture thing. And if you don't have that, AI is an accelerant. So it's going to either accelerate what you're good at and make you look even better, or it's going to make you look even worse. You're going to smack into the wall that much faster.
John, but quick question for you. Don't you think innovation is increasing at such a significant pace, but the customers are still trying to understand where they fit in the mix from their data readiness or innovation aptitude journey, that they can only absorb so much. So, and adapt so much. And I think the gap is so significant, it's going to cause a problem. If you were on the customer side, what do you select to bite off and go forward with? Like, how do you know what's best for your company? And then is your data even at the level that it needs to be to take advantage of that technology? I think it's so complicated and getting more complicated, and the vendors are only focused on their features and capabilities. They're showing the end result versus showing the journey to get to the end result.
So the good vendors are going beyond that, and they're doing things like co-innovation with customers and working with them on their pain points.
Sure.
Helping them to establish internal centers of excellence and all those sorely needed things. But like I told you, I think most vendors are falling down when it comes to education. And one of the reasons they are, and I have arguments with vendors about this, is they don't want to take responsibility for the misuse of their technologies. And so they're worried about getting sued if they get too involved in being responsible. But I keep telling them that you're not going to get sued for educating your customers. And to your point, Robert, customers really need to understand a lot of things around how they can get some successful results and notch wins, because that's the key to keeping the whole momentum going. The good news is that most customers are enjoying some level of buy-in around AI, because their executives are coming and saying, what are we doing about it? Even though the executives have no idea most of the times what that means. They just don't want to be left out of the party. But smart customers are able to kind of take a little bit of that executive push and turn it into business cases and start tackling data problems. But to your point, I think, every customer is different, but they need guidance around where are the pain points that they could best address with AI, and also where's their data to the point where they could start getting some wins in a particular area around those pain points where they have a reasonable level of data quality. The thing about AI is it's on a curve where you need more and more different kinds of data to make better and better decisions and complete more actions. But you can certainly start somewhere, right? You can spot a discrete problem. For example, maybe it's customer churn, right? And you say, actually, we can throw some more data into our customer churn problem than we ever have had before and have more visibility into that. Well, hey, retaining a bunch more customers, that's a really good problem to solve. Or maybe it's an inventory related issue where you lack visibility and people are getting pissed off. So you start focusing, but like you said, it's got to be where the data is good enough to get going. And there's a real opportunity for guidance there. And what I always say is that whoever wins the trust of the customer around that is going to win a lot of their future AI business. So vendors better pay attention to that, or they're not going to get the business.
Yeah, great comments there, guys. So we have one more comment. Let's cover that, and then we can move to the next story. So we have Anders. Anders, welcome. And he's saying, sounds like the time for a new department that mirrors HR, human resources, AI, AI resources. Many of the issues like shadow AI are no different than Brenda in accounting having her own sticky note system. That's right. And I don't know how successful AI resources department is going to be. I think IT has always struggled with its own identity. If you talk about ERP never had any sort of department. Good luck in creating that department for AI. That would be my comments. Anybody else has any follow-ups on that?
Well, kind of the thing I like about this is that in a certain sense, it's putting this whole progression puts IT departments on notice. And what do I mean by that? It gets them back, or it gets them to that why IT exists is to serve the organization, whatever they're part of. And before, it was basically a bit of a shotgun marriage, right? So you only engage the user community when you needed to. IT does IT things, the rest of the people in the business do business things. And that friction, that impedance mismatch between the two has been costly. I think that with the introduction of AI into the common conversation, it gives us the opportunity now to kind of reframe the role and to really now start owning that, okay, we are not just people that weed and feed technology, but rather we are helping to bring this new technology in and consume it in a thoughtful manner. And that's part of why we need this foundational education, both on the user side as well as the vendor's portion of the responsibility, like what John was talking about. Vendors do have an obligation to be providing more enhanced stuff so that they can take the work that they're doing, take the vendor education and put it together so that they can start thinking better about what they're going to do, how they're going to do it, and what the bottom line business impact is that they're looking for.
Yeah, great points, guys. We'll come back to some more comments. I think there are some more, but let's go to the next story, Robert, if you want to do that.
Yeah, let's do that. So we got a couple stories actually on ServiceNow with partnerships with a couple different companies, OpenAI and Anthropic. Let's talk about the first one. ServiceNow is obviously a pretty significant company, cloud-based workflow automation platform, and a lot of companies use them. So they have a new deal with it's a 3-year deal, I believe, with OpenAI, and we'll put ChatGPT, 5.2, right into the ServiceNow platform to help with the AI agents, to power them. And I think this is a pretty significant partnership, and it puts the OpenAI capabilities right into the workflows to power those workflows. It gives a lot of business impact by embedding AI into those IT, HR, customer service potential workflows that you might have to take more of an action. So you're opening cases, you're routing approvals, you're resolving issues. I think this is good, but again, we'll go back to the data. It has to be important. Let's go through this one, and then we'll kind of come back around to the second major deal that they made with Anthropic. But this is a deliberate strategy for them. I don't think it was definitely something that they put together to make some significant strides. What do you think, guys? John or Ken, you guys want to go first? Let's go,
So
Ken.
the thing I like about this is that, and the thing I appreciate about the ServiceNow platform is it has been designed from the ground up to be a platform. It's not just a series of APIs and you bolt stuff together, but rather you got one honking database and set of data structures that sit underneath. And I've actually been wondering whether they would actually pursue working with the LLM providers as opposed to trying to build something on their own and then use that as the foundation, because that's been a typical integration strategy. And what they'll buy a technology, they'll buy a company, and then engineer it into the platform and make it part of that capability. So I think that this is a really smart play, rather than trying to go and do a roll your own, to go with some of the market leaders here and build the hooks into it so that they can leverage all of the data that they now have access to. I think that the thing that customers are going to be wondering is, how seamless is this going to be for them? And that's an open question.
Yes, I agree. Security, pricing, those are probably concerns. But John, what are your thoughts?
So look, I like these partnerships with frontier model companies, but only to a point. I don't like it when they get too tied up in when vendors like ServiceNow get too tied up in these, because the frontier models are distracted by a lot of different things they're trying to accomplish. And by the way, they're building the most expensive models because they're going after big, hairy problems. Whereas I sometimes joke that companies like OpenAI and Anthropic can learn just as much from ServiceNow as vice versa in terms of really learning how to constrain AI to very specific specialized tasks with less errors and problems. So like I think you have to be a little careful, but if you use these partnerships right, you get access to cutting edge tools and technologies, and it enhances your strategy and it doesn't distract. If I were OpenAI, I might be a little bit jealous because I don't want to skip ahead just yet, but I thought the Anthropic press release had more meat on the bone, shall we say, and talks about how Claude is the default model powering ServiceNow's build agent. So if I was OpenAI, I might be a little bit jealous of the other news that came out. But actually, I think it's smart for companies like this to kind of play one model off each other. But one thing I saw in this was it said ServiceNow, by leveraging OpenAI's technology, avoids the cost of building large models internally while accelerating the roadmap. And it mentioned other competitors and stuff that are rolling out similar AI tools. Well, most of the competitors listed, I know, are building their own LLMs as well, and smaller models that are more fit for purpose and more affordable. And I'm hoping that ServiceNow is not abandoning that part of their strategy or not taking that seriously as well, because sometimes it makes more sense to build some of your own models and not offload all of that expertise. But anyhow, I like how they're being agnostic about it. And I think if you're a ServiceNow customer, generally you're happy because you like the fact that they're tapping into these best of breed models as well. I just think you have to be careful about overdoing it.
So from my perspective, guys, when I look at this story, by the way, interesting comments. So building your own LLM, I see this as more of the telco business model. There are only going to be so many telcos because there is substantial fixed cost involved. So it'll be naive if somebody does that. Now,
well, Sam, just to be clear though, Sam, like it's not necessarily naive in all cases. Like in the case of Zoho, for example, they're not trying to compete with Anthropic, but they built a model because data sovereignty is core to their business, and they don't want to be dependent on a handful of AI models. And when they're offering data sovereignty to companies and customers in different regions. And by the way, when I said LLMs, I used it a placeholder. You might not want to build a huge LLM, but you might want to build something specific to your industry, which many vendors have done, and build smaller models. And so I'm just saying, don't outsource all of your competencies on that, because otherwise you might get some pretty expensive bills from big AI providers. That's all I'm saying. But I agree with you. They shouldn't try to become frontier models, but that doesn't mean that it's not an all or nothing between frontier models versus building no models at all. That's what I'm trying to say.
Great points. And I love that example. And when I look at Zoho, they have always been very different beast, to be completely honest, because they have very different cost model. They have very different.
For sure. But the issue of data sovereignty is becoming an increasing concern for a lot of different countries and regions. It's not just a Zoho. I mean, you're right that Zoho is going to attack that problem in fairly unique Zoho ways, but that data sovereignty issue and not having your data in one kind of frontier model in one country is going to be a big issue. That's all I'm saying.
It's definitely going to be a big
issue. I'll stop interrupting you. Go on.
And for Zoho, I think that makes sense because they are going to get substantial market share in India, and that's where they are penetrating. Their ERP strategies aligned towards Indian market as well. India is pushing big time for Zoho, so it's a jackpot for Zoho. That's what I would do, I guess, if I were Zoho. Now, looking at slightly more in the broader context, I guess. So again, I don't know how many different models are going to be there in the market, but overall, this push makes sense. And this is where we are going to get the real enterprise use cases for AI. Now, I don't know whether you guys followed the warning from Deloitte. They had just announced like 3 days back, I guess. And they are warning pretty much everybody to not use any LLMs internally. And that's probably going to be relevant for every single company out there that is dealing with any sort of sensitive data. I am fairly concerned, and I am completely in line with Deloitte and everybody who is dealing with something like ERP, that any touch with LLM should be scrutinized, because right now employees are literally, my own employees, and we need to watch them because sometimes we have the whole spreadsheet from the customer, and sometimes they are like, okay, I'm going to push that on LLM, and LLM is going to know about your IP and bombs. That's scary. So we are taking ultra care, in how we access LLM internally, and that's where I guess every company should be concerned right now. Now, every single enterprise application is going to have LLM touches as well. So that's a very scary part, for us as well. So now this is where I guess these guys hopefully together will figure out some sort of enterprise use cases that you don't have to always integrate with public LLMs. And when I talk about LLM, I'm talking about publicly hosted LLM, not the smaller ones, the ones that John is talking about. And I don't know if Zoho is trying to release the public one or just the smaller one. I don't know. I don't have details on that. But those would be my comments on the story.
Well, you probably have a lot more comments when we go to this next story about ServiceNow and Anthropic as a partner to help their customers build AI applications. And they're saying that this is not necessarily a competitive situation. It's to put the right, the right LLM for the right job. And let's see if you guys agree with that. I think that you're going to see, so you want the right model for the right job. It's about the customer. We talked about this before, but there's obviously some, this governance issue that you just mentioned, Sam, I think is a big, that's a problem. And if you get into healthcare and you get into other, legal stuff, I think it presents a significant challenge. But if you look at what they're trying to do from, ServiceNow's perspective, I think they're going towards the right path. I think this gives the customer a lot of tools in the tool shed. What do we all think?
I'll start on this one. So here as well, I guess my comments are going to be very similar. This is just the diversification strategy, and I think every company is going to do that, depending upon whichever model works best for the specific use cases. And everybody would have some sort of industry expertise. Some models are going to be better for specific industries. In this case, they are talking about healthcare and life sciences. So that's why that could be one approach that ServiceNow may be taking, and here they are talking about research analysis, claims authorization. And Robert, to your point, when you talk about claims, you have very sensitive data. I know these guys are going to talk about, what is that? Removing the PI information, I guess, before interacting with LLMs. Yes, that is possible. But again, when employees are interacting with the LLMs themselves, I don't know how much control you are going to have. And it's going to be very hard to track. I don't know how the auditability is going to work. So again, my questions and concerns that I have are more related to LLM interaction. But from the partnership perspective, I like it. This is the right direction.
What do you do if your employees to train them of what they should access or let access that you're wanting the models to look at for you? Do you tell them? Have you trained them and given them the scopes?
So, Robert, when you talk about employees, and I have spent last 20 years doing this, and whatever you are going to tell them, they are never going to listen to all of that. Okay, they are going to do whatever they are going to do, and I don't think I can figure this out in next 40 years either of my career. So I have given hope on that, but here we are talking about serious legal concerns. Okay, and you cannot count on employees for that. You need to create processes to defend this, otherwise you are going to be in serious trouble.
So Sam, can I comment on that real quick? Because I think you raised really important points. From an employee perspective, it's almost impossible to stop an employee from using a shadow AI LLM of their own choosing, right? It's almost impossible to do that. Now, your hope is that the employees turned off some of the opt-in features around training and stuff like that, but still huge risk there, right? And you're right, the governance and all that is needed. But in a case of something like ServiceNow and Anthropic or any vendor in a large language model, when you provide it within the ServiceNow application, all those issues are off the table because ServiceNow has worked out with Anthropic that none of that information goes into the training set, period. The idea is that it goes in through context only. It doesn't impact the model itself. And so the output comes out, and it might be very, private information that's provided in the context, but it never becomes part of the LLM. And that gets built into the software here. Now, the other thing you have to do is address the log files, because these systems keep log files, but that's a technical issue that you can solve and make sure that the log files are deleted and all of that once they're no longer useful. You work that out with the vendor. So when ServiceNow does this, they're providing a safe, secure solution. Now, part of what you're raising is that enterprises need to provide secure sandboxes for their employees to play around with tools like this for the same reason, so that they don't go off and do their own thing as much. But that's kind of a different conversation. But the point is, you can get very specific results on very sensitive private corporate data out of these LLMs without any risk of contaminating the training set with that IP. The problem, and why I refer to smaller models, is, first of all, it can get pretty expensive to use frontier models for very simple things, which is why building smaller models can be much more affordable. And then also, sometimes you're missing necessary language. So in the case of finance, for example, having an LLM trained on finance terms could potentially be very, very helpful in some vendors in finance. One I'm thinking of, Sage, I wrote about, have done that. And so anyway, just to kind of address that point. But I like the overall agnostic play that ServiceNow is making here with different models, and I think that gives them a lot of flexibility.
Yeah, great points, John. And I hope you are right, because, I definitely want AI more and more. I don't want it to be blocked across, corporate boundaries. But at the same time, when I look at, again, when you interact with LLMs, they pretty much know every single IP there. They know internals of the software that nobody knew before. You could not find any sort of demo. So how did I learn about that? Right. So obviously, all of these interactions are playing the role. Now, can you really attribute where the information is coming from and who is revealing that? I think that's going to be a problem. Also, when you look at software bill of materials, incidents such as CrowdStrike that we had. Okay, I don't think companies or the world in general has control on software bombs. If you look at the number of sub-processors every single enterprise software company might be using at this point of time, okay, there are millions. Okay, ServiceNow, when they look at their software bill of materials, they are going to use millions and millions of software underneath, and each of them are going to have some sort of interaction with these LLMs. So who's going to be blamed? Who's going to protect? I don't know. I don't have those answers.
Well, right. And look, I mean, what you're saying is implying, and you're correct, that these models open up new threat vectors. And just like cloud security, there's a lot of stuff that can go wrong with new threat vectors. So I totally agree there. I'm just saying that if you construct these architectures right, you can absolutely protect the LLMs from training within your software. But the problem that you point out is that doesn't protect you from an employee doing that on the side. And like you said, and then it becomes part of the training set, and then you will find it in there. So Sam, this is why companies need folks like yourself very badly, because they need to assess this risk reward very carefully.
Yep. Good point. Ken, what do you think?
Two things I want to bring up. First is that, actually 3 points. First point is that I think that what we're talking about here is a real natural fit for the way that Claude would be used in a typical organization who's developing things. Because number one, ServiceNow gives you the ability to actually build applications on the platform. So I think that being able to use Claude and as an enabler for doing a better job of building apps on the platform is an interesting direction to be looking at. The second thing is around the whole application of this to the workflow. Because when you get right down to it, because of the fact, ServiceNow is really a humongous set of data structures. The agent, in order to actually facilitate the collaboration between the different modules and the different players that will actually need to be engaged in building something out, like a workflow, what they need is access to the data structure, not necessarily the PII that's being held underneath it, in order to be able to make recommendations on how to optimize flows, or to be able to look at what about this is or is not working. And I think to the extent that that's the way that it informs how these things are developed and optimized over time, that makes a lot of sense without necessarily having a bunch of information exposure or data leakage.
Yeah, great points, Ken. Robert, do you want to go to the next story?
Let's do the next one. Let's jump into a little ERP stuff.
Okay. I mean, we have really good representation for ERP today. We should cover some ERP stories.
Yeah, we got to talk about some of that. It's Simpro Group. They're buying, I think they're one of their resellers was the Light acquisition. Is that correct, Sam? They were already a partner of them. focusing mostly on field service businesses like plumbing, electrical, HVAC. I just had an HVAC problem in my house, which is another story. Security, things like that. I think this is a good buy because it puts more of an AI presence into this, into the ERP components that they're having with these different industries that they're working with, these trades. I think that you'll probably have some good knowledge on this, Sam. But the pros are what I just said, but we're going to run into some of the cons that we've already talked about. With I think these industries are a little bit more skeptical of technology, so they're probably a little bit further behind than some of the other industries. At the same time, we get to run into the change management that I always talk about, but also they've made this available right away for their customers. So I do think it's a win. It's just a matter of how they're going to position it. What do you guys think?
Yeah, so I'm not familiar with these guys, but overall, like as field service market, I'm extremely familiar with, with different vendors that we have. I don't know how big these guys are. I've never heard of them before. Now, field service is a very unique beast in general, overall from the industry perspective, right? Robert, obviously you are a big champion of ERP, but when you talk about field service businesses, I don't know how much ERP they can use because they are very unique business. Now, in field service also, there could be layers, right? If you are talking about somebody like what these guys are talking about, which is going to be residential, home service, HVAC, they are a very different field service business than something like equipment maintenance. Those are going to be very different, right? Because they'll have the serial numbers and how they want to track, etc. Now, in these cases, they are going to have sort of the CRM strategy, and CRM becomes very thick. Their ERP footprint is going to be very small in general. So in this case, obviously, they are doing a lot. So most likely, my guess from this story would be that they are more of the CRM player as opposed to the real ERP player, even though we started this story as more of the ERP. So yeah, those are my comments. What about you guys?
Well, I mean, the goal is to get the information to the field, and that's what they're doing. So however the system is set up, whether it's CRM or ERP or a combination, they're trying to be more efficient in the field so they can deliver more impact to the customer. So does this help them or hurt them? I think it helps them. But John, what do you think?
Well, the things that I liked most about this, I thought you all hit almost all the points. One thing I really liked about this press release is the sentence, Delight is fully integrated into Simpro Group's growing platform and is immediately available to all Simpro customers. How often do you see that in a press release? Usually when you see a press release, those of us analyzing these events have to talk to the vendor and find out, when is this on the roadmap? What does the integration look like? When will it be rolled out? When the beta customers, blah, blah, blah. Nope, the hell with all that. This is immediately available to all customers. When? And then the other thing that I liked here was they're already a partner, and they said that they're already seeing strong ROI from automated targeted customer communication, reported increase of 15% in sales and 10% in recurring revenue in as little as 6 weeks. Now, I don't know exactly what that means for future growth and all of that, but those are decent numbers, and I'm prepared to accept them because I do think that winning over like existing customers with more repeat business has proven to be a winning strategy, and it makes sense. Now, how well can AI do that? I'll need some more proof points there because I don't know about you guys, but it's pretty rare for me to receive an AI opportunity in my inbox that actually gets me to buy anything. But I'm not going to object to the idea that if you do that across a customer base, you're going to get some purchases. So I like that they're starting on a bit of a foundation, but what does that mean in the long run? How much growth is possible? This press release seems to think the sky's the limit, and I think we're going to have to wait and see on that.
Ken, what
So
do you think?
the thing I was really intrigued about with this particular release is the whole notion that, yes, they're starting off with a specialty which reflects the existing partnership, but being able to apply this to a number of different adjacent trades, and that's the way that I read it, as being able to apply it to a trade business. I think that being able to look at that as a way to get into adjacent markets and expand the customer base, especially if it might be a SMB type play I think that's very smart, and I'd love to be able to see more about how they would intend to execute on that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Can I address Leonard's last question real quick, Sam, if that's possible? And other people may want to comment on it too, just real quick.
Yeah, just 1 second. Okay, so you are talking about this one or
no?
this?
Oh,
last one.
actually, no. We could talk about that one too.
Okay.
Just yeah, both of them are good. A lot of negative publicity. ML runs in the background. Most people love it. Yeah, and I think a lot of these more proven forms of AI are really useful, and companies shouldn't overlook them when they're evaluating solutions to problems, because it's not only proven, Leonard, it's a lot cheaper, so that helps too. But I would do less of a contrast between AI and agentic AI in terms of what might work better, and it's more about how you design the use case, right? Because you could say we need better triage in an emergency room, let's try AI. And you could do a really great implementation that serves patients better, or you could do a really crappy implementation that makes a lot of mistakes. And so I'm a big fan of use case design more than one technology is better than the other. I think it all comes down to getting the use case right.
Good point.
Could not agree more.
Yeah.
John, do you want to attack the next one, or anybody
Yeah,
else?
this is the one I really wanted to address because
Okay.
it was directly to my comment. Leonard's basically saying that outsource LLMs. Leonard, just to be clear, I'm not advising customers to build large language models. I'm not at all. Customer, when you look at what makes these landscapes work, they're very complex, and customers should be focusing on things like data quality and governance and making sure, addressing all of Sam's concerns around screwing this whole thing up and creating a nightmare for themselves. So what I was saying is that vendors need to take that seriously, not necessarily building an LLM, but looking at specific. Every vendor should have some answers to right-sizing models for specific scenarios and tasks going forward. That's all I'm saying there. But yeah, I totally agree with you. Customers shouldn't be building LLMs.
Yeah, great points, John. And we have one more comment here. We'll cover that and then go to the next one. So I
agree. I got to look that story up, Sam. As soon as we end this meeting, I'm going to check that out.
I don't think I've seen that from a very large accounting firm, and that was very interesting. And maybe we need to have that story as part of this show.
Yeah.
Okay, Robert, do you want to go to the next one?
Yeah, let's do it. So we got Cognizant and Typeface partner. Cognizant is obviously a significant, large consulting firm. I'm not sure. I looked them up a little bit. I cannot believe they have over 300,000 employees. It's just astronomical. But they're partnering with Typeface, and the CEO of Typeface used to be the CTO of Adobe. So, which is kind of apropos for what they do, which they're a AI marketing platform. So they're partnering where Cognizant's going to do the implementations, advisory, creative things, change management services, but they're already doing together CRM, CMS, and CDP. So this is probably a new delivery, dedicated delivery to help with this. Thoughts on what we think of this? I think it sounds probably pretty good, but not sure. It's a kind of a crowded space right now with Salesforce and others.
Okay, so this is very interesting as well, guys, and change management is probably highlighted here. Robert, you are probably going to like it, but at the same time, when you look at this change management is very different from your ERP change management. Now, change management could be all over the place. So when you look at the market at this point of time, and I think we have probably analyzed maybe 100 stories right now in the marketing landscape, and everybody's saying that, hey, we can do project management. Project management is easy. Marketing project management is what I'm talking about. Managing the whole process from creative, and John is probably going to love that because that's what he does for living. In a lot of us, I guess. I mean, especially if you're doing the media business, right? So for that, this could be great. But my take on this would be that when I read CDP stories, they all are saying that, I'll keep marketing project management. These guys are saying, I'll keep marketing project management. So who owns marketing project management is going to be a question. Here they are talking about orchestration, but again, I don't know. This is more of the enterprise scenario. That's why Cognizant is excited and involved. Otherwise, they would not probably partner with these guys. So Typeface must be very enterprise-centric platform. I don't know. I have never come across them before. And I think they are talking about enterprises can orchestrate. So they have used the enterprise word, which means real enterprise. So that would be my take on this one, on the story, guys.
So the thing that stands out for me that I really liked about, and this is the bullet that was pulled out here, is that enterprises are entering a new phase of AI adoption where intelligence must be embedded into how work actually gets done. I think that's a great bullet to pull out, and it's a bit overly optimistic. I think that, yes, directionally correct, but I don't think that's where enterprises are right now. I think that they would be well positioned to be going for that, but there's now more fundamental things that need to get done in order to get to there. So yeah, the intelligence they're going to be able to get, but they need to be thinking more about, okay, we have employees, they are doing things that help us fulfill our mission. Where do those things come together? How do we help people exercise their good judgment? How do we help them serve people better? Those are the things that I think as core questions, and being able to think about how to bring these two threads together is going to be most important in the short to medium term.
Don't you think like all these announcements and partnerships they just make it more challenging for the customer? I mean, how do they
Absolutely.
You just said it depends what the customer's at. So where are they at? I mean, they got to be like every which way but loose. I mean, how do you break it down? Which are the customers that are winning on this? Or those are the ones that have just from the top down, strategies that are just processes that you guys all mentioned that are just top of mind? Because if my company, if I was a manufacturer, if I was a finance company or a healthcare company, I would need a significant amount of resources to be able to decipher all of this.
So just my take on it is that from a mechanical perspective, I think that customers need to be doing more around being able to take targeted projects and what I have previously referred to as experimentation. How do we actually get these technologies into a lab and then start thinking about how they're consumed and where they meet people? And you do not need a large effort in order to do that, to gain some initial operating experience and then take the pulse of what your workforce looks like. So you can think about, okay, what training enablement do they need in order to help move us to the next level, to the next level of participation?
So, so I'm going to, oh, sorry, Robert, go ahead.
No, what do you think? That's all.
Oh, well, I'm going to say that I thought Ken made a lot of good points. And in particular, I think they make a point around, AI's ability to help create personalized marketing campaigns at some scale. I think that's to be taken very seriously. But I mostly want to call BS on this press release. This is my least favorite of the ones we've seen so far today. There's a lot of highfalutin language in here. And then by 2030, AI embracing customers are projected to drive 55% of purchasing activity, 4.4 trillion in the United States alone. I'm not saying that's wrong, but a lot of people have really pressing problems right now with their businesses, and waiting until 2030 for this big spend to unload is not a winning strategy, because when we see those big numbers, what we lose track of is there's always winners and losers in every market. And so, $1 trillion. So it's like, all four of us are going to be sipping pina coladas in 2030 based on all this agentic commerce we're going to do. That's not going to happen. All right. We're probably still going to be here if you want my honest opinion. So and the other thing about it is that personalization at scale, when you talk about individual consumers, yes, customers struggle with that, but that's very, very hard to do. I did a whole series on hyper-personalization this summer with Thomas Weber, and I asked him again and again, what are the examples of doing this at scale that really work? And from a hyper-personalization angle, the ones I'm most impressed with are YouTube, TikTok, and in the commerce arena, Amazon, and to some extent, Netflix. And that's my short list. What do those companies have in common? Much deeper pockets than the typical customer. Now, if this announcement can help more customers get closer to that, then great. But all I'm saying is that getting personalization right is not cheap and it's not easy.
Yeah.
All right, guys. So Robert, do you want to do one more story, or I think we are
Well,
close to our time right now? So just
let's wrap up. Maybe
yeah.
I was thinking like we all watched the Olympics, and it's pretty special this year, and it always is special. So, how did AI change it for you all, and or did it? And what are your thoughts? And what else is what are you gonna be doing this weekend? Maybe, John, we'll start with you.
Well, AI didn't really shape my viewing experience, Robert. Sorry, but you know what did was listening to my guys on talk radio locally. But hey, it was in podcast format. So, but yeah, and it was cool to hear their excitement because especially with the hockey teams winning and stuff. Yeah, who can't have their heart pound a little bit for stuff like that? And I don't know about you guys, but right now I'm just so hungry for happy stories, especially about international stuff.
Yeah.
Like competing fairly and squarely and leaving your heart out on the Olympic field or whatever. To me, that's like friggin' beautiful and sorely needed. This weekend, I'm mostly going to be regrouping from the content today and everything, but it's been so much fun. I always learn so much during these shows. So when Sam knocks, I'm always going to come. Hey, if you're not bored with video, pop on to my show in an hour because we're going to do a really cool month in review show with some agentic AI rundown. So anyway,
Nice.
But enough of the plugs. But if you're bored, come along.
Thank you, Ken. What about yourself?
Well, I'm rarely, if ever, bored, but John, I definitely look forward to being able to see that. As far as the Olympics go, I didn't watch much of it, but what I did watch, I really enjoyed, and obviously both the men's and the women's hockey was definitely something that I paid attention to, and I was very pleased with the outcome, not necessarily from a nationalistic perspective, but really to see athletes that are coming together that are highly trained, highly motivated, just to give it their all and to see the outcomes. Always great to see. As far as this weekend goes, my plan is, given it's sunny, I'm going to get out and have some outside time.
I thought the Olympics it's always fascinating. I was actually at the 1996 Olympics 20 years ago in Atlanta, right after the Unabomber or the person bombed at the Unabomber, but the bomber.
Yeah.
The
Olympic
park.
one, yep.
I think that data is making a significant, valuable play, and I also think it's helping with security behind the scenes. And I think that also the broadcasting is going to the cloud, and how that's reshaping how you can view it, and that you can also see it all personalized. I think you're not really seeing it as much as you think, but it's back and behind the scenes and reshaping it so all the fans are getting an enormous amount more. I think the athletes are gaining a lot of insights for how they can improve. I think, like you said, leaving your heart on the table. I think that's what sports is about. You go from the Lindsey Vonn story to the Olympics, and with the Canadians and the Americans in the overtime. I mean, that was like exactly how we all wanted it. Actually, Sam, I thought you outplayed us, and I probably should have won. Bennington, who's the goalie for Canada, I'm from St. Louis, and I follow the St. Louis Blues all the time. He's the goalie there, so I love the Canadian team as well. There's an enormous amount of major athletes on it, so I think soup to nuts, it's fantastic, and data is playing a big role with AI in the Olympics to reshape how we're going to watch it forever. Sam, what do you think?
Yeah, that's very interesting, and I probably need to pay a lot more attention there. So I did not follow Olympics as much. I'll do that, Robert. You have given me homework. Now, in terms of some of the happy stories, and I don't know whether these are going to be happy stories or sad stories, I'll let you guys decide. But there's a lot happening overall in the global market at this point of time in terms of deal making. Canada, India, technology sharing, AI strategy. So I don't know how the software market is going to be in the future. I think UBS has downgraded some of the US software equities. So I don't know where the LLM and AI strategy is going to be. But I'll leave at that point. And again, I don't know at this point of time whether that is exciting or sad, but there are a lot of changes that are happening in the market.
By the way, Leonard says we're going to see AI robots sweeping the curling competition in 4 years. Leonard, come on, man.
I saw a commercial that was, those robots, on the floor that go around and clean up your, what are they?
Yeah.
What are they called? So there was one
Robot?
going around someone's home, and then the guy had the broom in front of it, sweeping the dirt to it, or making it go faster or whatever. It was kind of a joke of the curling and how they do it with the sweepers, but there was a lot of curling on. So anyway,
that's a very strong possibility, guys. And thank you so much, Leonard, for that. And thank you so much for joining. So that's a wrap, guys. Now we meet 1 p.m. Eastern every Friday. So I'll see you next week, guys.
thank you.
Bye, everybody.
Bye all.